God bless you, church. I hope you're having a blessed day. I wanted to just talk to you about the moments where we are fearful and the moments that we tell lies when we know we shouldn't tell lies. You know, the Bible tells us in Psalm 51 verse 6 that, behold, I desire truth in the inward parts. And why do we lie, right? Let's face it. When we're weak, when we're feeling afraid, we tell lies. When we feel we're backed in a corner, or we just dilute down the truth, right? Let's just be real here. You know, sometimes we don't tell the whole truth, right? Because we're fearful. Remember Peter in the Bible when he was warming himself and Jesus had been arrested. And the woman said to him, your speech betrays you. You must be with Jesus. You know, you sound like him. And he started cursing in the end because he denied Jesus 3 times. Why? Because he was fearful. He had a moment of weakness. And every one of us have moments of weakness. And that's okay to have moments of weakness. It's okay sometimes to feel afraid at times. But in that moment of weakness, what we don't want to do is lie. In that moment of weakness, what we don't want to do is deny the truth. You know? We have to rise up and be strong. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? Jesus came with both grace and truth, right? The law was given. So the law was distant. It was given. It was handed to you. Here we go. There's a law. Do this. But grace came, right? Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Another name for Jesus is faithful and true. So when the enemy is accusing you and the enemy makes you feel intimidated and afraid and vulnerable, you know, you're not faithful and true. You're fearful and you tell a lie, right? To get out of, maybe you're backed up in a corner. Maybe you don't want somebody to know something about you. Because what happens is sometimes when we are not loved by God, because perfect love casts out fear, it drives out fear. When we are not loved by God, when we don't know our identity, right? We get backed up in a corner. We feel like we have to prove something to somebody, right? We feel we're not enough. So if you don't feel enough today, right, and you feel you have to prove yourself to people, get loved by God. You know, we are called to be loved. That's the work Jesus wants you and I to have, to rest in the finished work of the cross and to be loved by him. Plug into him. You know, a hairdryer is a great piece of machinery, right? You can do all sorts with a hairdryer. You can blast dye, blow dry, style, but that hairdryer is powerless unless it is plugged into the main power supply of electricity. It's the same with you and I. Amazing on our own. We can do stuff on our own. We have great purpose and potential, but unless we are plugged into the power supply, the perfect love of God abiding in the vine, right? And then we will bear fruit, right? Because the power that flows from us, from the energy source into us, right? It brings life to us, right? And we are then functioning in our purpose and our fullest potential. It's the same with God, right? When we are loved by God, when we know the truth and the truth has set us free, then we can be bold and courageous. The Bible also says the same Peter before he denied Christ, right? He was bold. The apostles were bold, and it says that this was evidence that they had been with Jesus. They had been with Jesus, right? And Jesus, the truth, the way, the life, he didn't back down. Even with the Pharisees, you know, he could have just walked away from me. He said, brood of vipers, you know, sons of the devil, right? He could have just minced his words. He could have diluted it down, but he wasn't afraid. He had been loved by God. He was the begotten, beloved of God, right? He was bold. So when you have been loved by God, when you are plugged into the power source of God's love, when you abide in God, abide in Jesus, right? In the true vine, because there's a false vine. Abide in the true vine, right? Then you will bear fruit, you will flourish. And you will not feel that you have to prove anything to anybody, that you can just be bold and you can be courageous. So we all have moments of weakness. We all have moments where we feel vulnerable and afraid. But in that moment, stop and think, I'm not going to allow the enemy to cause me to tell a lie. Because when you lie, you just high-five the devil and you don't even realize it. Because Satan is both a liar and a deceiver, a thief and a liar. And we don't want to give him ground in our life, right? God desires truth in the inward parts. He came with grace and truth. He came to give us that truth that sets us free, that breaks chains and shackles and yokes in our lives. We can stand boldly in that truth, and we declare that we know whose we are and we know who we are, because the truth that we know has set us free. So do not be fearful and do not be weak, because in the moments of fearfulness and weakness, that's when we feel vulnerable and we tend to exaggerate or tell lies or prove ourselves to people, when we only got to stand before one maker, one God, and give an account to him, not to a person, right? The Bible says, do not put your trust in princes. Do not put your trust in man who doesn't even have control of his own breath, right? So when he departs from this earth, so put your trust in the living God, right? So if there's any areas in your life that you feel, you feel insecure or afraid, what's the root system? The answer is always the love of God. You can pluck out those roots. Renounce fearful. Renounce fearful. Fearful is a spirit, by the way. We look in the book of Job. The Bible says that Job was fearful. He says, the thing that I feared greatly has come upon me. So it was the spirit, right? Even Job, who was blameless, he had to deal with this fearfulness, right? So if he had to deal with it, we got to deal with it. Pluck out the root of fear. Perfect love drives out fear, and God is love. So next time you think, I don't want to tell someone the truth, I think I can get away with a little white lie. There's no such thing as a white lie. Lies are lies, and it's ground for the enemy. Don't give him ground. Get filled with the love of God and walk in the truth and the grace that Jesus came to give you. God bless you, church. I love you. Bye-bye.